Hello, America. I am John Tyler, the 10th President of the United States, and I was once a VP. Welcome to Trust Raw Facts. This is a one-part series presenting the facts as we await the outcome of the 2024 presidential elections. This distinguished group you are about to meet were all serving as Vice President and then succeeded the President-elect to become President.
Welcome to the one-part series, From VP to President, A History of Succession. I'm Teddy Roosevelt, and I was a VP who succeeded my President-elect. Vice President Harris became the Democratic frontrunner, and TRF picked her to succeed Joe Biden over 4 years ago during the presidential election of 2020. Today we will meet the 9 VPs who succeeded their presidents. Let's get edified.
Hello, America. I'm Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States. I served in office from 1848 to 1853. I was the last president to have been a member of the Whig Party. I was the 12th Vice President and succeeded Zachary Taylor. When he died in 1850, I was instrumental in passing the Compromise of 1850. I appointed Brigham Young, the first governor of the Utah Territory. In September of 1850, I appointed the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints leader Brigham Young as the first governor of the Utah Territory. In gratitude, Young named the first territorial capital Fillmore and the surrounding county Millard after me, Millard Fillmore the 13th, President of the United States. Hello, I am Andrew Johnson, the 17th President of the United States, serving from 1865 to 1869. I assumed the presidency following the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, as I was vice president at that time. I was a Democrat who ran with Abraham Lincoln on the National Union Party ticket. I apprenticed as a tailor and worked in several frontier towns before settling in Greenville, Tennessee. Lincoln chose me as a running mate to send a message of national unity during his re-election campaign of 1864. I opposed the 14th Amendment, which gave citizenship to former slaves. I was vice president in 1865, then became president in 1865. As conflict grew between the branches of government, Congress passed the Tenure of Office Act, restricting my ability to fire cabinet officials. I was the incumbent president in 1868, but did not win the Democratic presidential nomination that year. I returned to Tennessee after my presidency and gained some vindication when I was elected to the Senate in 1875, making me the only president to afterwards serve in the Senate.
Hello, I am Chester Allen Arthur. I was the 21st President of the United States, serving from 1881 to 1885. I was a Republican lawyer from New York who previously served as the 20th Vice President under President James A. Garfield, assuming the presidency after Garfield's assassination. My presidency saw the largest expansion of the U.S. Navy and the end of the so-called spoils system, which may sound familiar to you, although it is said the spoils system ended with me. In politics and government, a spoils system, also known as a patronage system, is a practice in which a political party, after winning an election, gives government jobs to its supporters, friends, cronyism, and relatives, nepotism, as a reward for working toward victory and as an incentive not by merit. I enforced the Immigration Act of 1882 to impose more restrictions on immigrants and the tariff of 1883 to attempt to reduce tariffs. I also signed into law the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act of 1883, which came as a surprise to reformers who held a negative reputation of me as a stalwart and product of Conkling's organization. No duty was neglected during my administration.
Hello, I'm Theodore Roosevelt Jr., often referred to as Teddy or TR. I was the 26th President of the United States, serving from 1901 to 1909. I was the Vice President under President William McKinley for 6 months in 1901, assuming the presidency after McKinley's assassination. I emerged as a leader of the Republican Party and became a driving force for antitrust and progressive policies. As a sickly child with debilitating asthma, I overcame health problems through a strenuous lifestyle. I was homeschooled and began a lifelong naturalist avocation before attending Harvard College. Losing my wife and my mother on the same night, I recuperated by buying and operating a cattle ranch in the Dakotas. I served as Assistant Secretary of the Navy under McKinley, and in 1898 helped plan the successful naval war against Spain. I resigned to help form and lead the Rough Riders, a unit that fought the Spanish army in Cuba to great publicity. Returning a war hero, I was elected New York's governor in 1898. I assumed the presidency at age 42, the youngest person to become U.S. president. As a leader of the progressive movement, I championed the Square Deal, a domestic policy, which called for fairness for all citizens, breaking bad trusts, regulating railroads, and pure food and drugs. I prioritized conservation and established national parks, forests, and monuments to preserve U.S. resources. I expanded the Navy and sent the Great White Fleet on a world tour to project naval power. With successful efforts to end the Russo-Japanese War, I won the 1906 Nobel Peace Prize, the first American to win a Nobel Prize. I was elected to a full term in 1904 and groomed William Howard Taft to succeed me in 1908. Failing to win the nomination for president in 1912, I formed the Progressive Party.
Hello, I'm Calvin Coolidge. Born John Calvin Coolidge Jr., I was the 30th President of the United States, serving from 1923 to 1929. As a Republican lawyer from Massachusetts, I previously served as the 29th Vice President from 1921 to 1923 and as the 48th Governor of Massachusetts from 1919 to 1921. Elected Vice President in 1920, I elevated to President upon the sudden death of Warren G. Harding. Elected in my own right in 1924, I gained a reputation as a small government conservative with a taciturn personality and dry sense of humor that earned me the nickname Silent Cal. My widespread popularity enabled me to run for a second full term, but I chose not to run again in 1928, remarking that 10 years as president would be longer than any other man has had it. That's too long. During my gubernatorial career, I ran on the record of fiscal conservatism, strong support for women's suffrage, and vague opposition to prohibition. My prompt and effective response to the Boston police strike of 1919 thrust me into the national spotlight as a man of decisive action. During my presidency, I restored public confidence in the White House after the many scandals of Harding's term.
Hello, I am Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States, serving from 1945 to 1953. Briefly in 1945 as the 34th Vice President of the United States under Franklin D. Roosevelt. I assumed the presidency after Roosevelt's death. I implemented the Marshall Plan in the wake of World War II to rebuild the economy of Western Europe and established both the Truman Doctrine and NATO. After I became president, I learned of the Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb. I authorized the first and only use of nuclear weapons. I presided over the onset of the Cold War in 1947. I oversaw the Berlin Airlift and Marshall Plan in 1948. I was the first president to receive a pension. I issued Executive Order 9980 and 9981, which prohibited discrimination in federal agencies. Hello, I'm Gerald Rudolph Ford Jr. Though I was born Leslie Lynch King Jr., I was the 38th President of the United States, serving from 1974 to 1977. I assumed the presidency after President Richard Nixon resigned, under whom I served as the 40th Vice President from 1973 to 1974. Prior to that, I served as a member of the House of Representatives from 1949 to 1973. I pardon Nixon. I was not elected.
Hello, I'm LBJ, the 36th President of the United States, from 1963 to 1969. I became president after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, under whom I had served as the 37th Vice President from 1961 to 1963. As we've edified today, you hopefully have learned the importance of choosing the Vice President
Thank you for learning with Trust Raw Facts.
I've made being a straw man great. Again, some say better than ever.